Today is appropriately off the cuff, not in a professional studio. Please excuse the amateur lighting, but I think it's important to say after GPT-5 was released, we should probably stop using AI to think. So I am a victim too, in the dumbest phrase you could say, of using AI many times over. The biggest use case for me is I do speak Japanese as a second language. I would say I am fluent. I would say I am highly level fluent, but I am still, to the ears of Japanese, clearly a foreign person. So I use AI fairly regularly with a custom GPT I have made to basically take emails in Japanese, letters in Japanese, and I say, correct this as much as needed to have it still sound native and natural. And I use that much a time. But the thing is, there's an extent to where we should and shouldn't use AI. And I'm more or less starting to lean more into the idea of stopping to use AI. Now, it is too efficient, though, for me to avoid. And the fact that it's like, you have a goal for the day for your work and you need to get there, and you could take a road that takes 30 minutes or you take a road that takes 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm unfortunately still going to take the road that takes 10 minutes most of the time, especially if it's something like manual that could be automated pretty simply. If it's something that's just me, for example, maybe looking up certain companies that I could do and hand a task to AI. And I don't think, even if you try to use conventional approaches we knew from 5 years ago, like let's say, for example, you want maybe the top 30 companies in the IT industry in South Korea or something like that. You could probably consult a couple different websites. I'm sure there's some official Korean government page that talks about official entities, and there are different, sites that do research into the different industries, and you could figure it out that way. But now you can do the same thing, get the same result in half the time, a third of the time, a fifth of the time, a tenth of the time, because we can just punch a prompt into GPT. But what I'm getting concerned, though, is from the various reports we're seeing about brain atrophy from overuse of AI. And you can see the direct results now of some college students today are thrust into a world where they only know college with AI. I'm a young person, so I did graduate college within this decade, but I'll say that I graduated and got my degree and finished school in academia all before I had so much as even heard the term ChatGPT. So I feel fortunate in that regard. And with this whole channel's purpose to talk about thinking rationally, thinking for yourself, and understanding the world we live in a secular view, you don't always have the answers right in front of you, and you can't always get the answers. I guess ChatGPT, though, kind of is a alley for us to always get some answer, whether it's correct or not. And I resonate with a comment I saw online on an article, many of the articles about this topic, that I really started to get concerned when I heard coworkers, when I heard other students or colleagues or friends say, well, let's ask ChatGPT, as if that's some sort of final source of truth or the expert opinion there. And it is scary to see the amount of people who try to find something factual, some important information, and they just punch it into GPT and take that answer as the true answer. So with this channel, the last post I made as well, I'm doing a survey also on your guys' thoughts on AI. I do think from an ethical perspective, the idea of taking copyrighted materials, for example, and punching that into an algorithm, being able to recreate, for example, like Ghibli art was a big contentious thing from several months ago, taking the works of other authors, the other creators. And I do think it is obviously bad, right? I value intellectual property. I did study into music, for example, in the past. So I appreciate that. But there is just so much efficiency, I guess. And it feels like, if you're dedicated to riding on a horse, when cars are being invented, you can't really stop the advent of cars coming on. So there's a kind of accelerationist forcing us forward. At the same time, there is, longing to stay to the way things are. But me saying that now, I feel like I'm giving lip service to the AI people who only want to, see AI take over the universe as far as that goes. I think the point is, though, however far AI invades into our life and world, and it will, it is already, we see, new companies, new tools, new services, new platforms every day. Needlessly so, I'm sure we'll have AI-powered microwaves in the next year. It just gets to the point where it's unavoidable because of the utility. But what I do think that will separate, anybody from just sticking to using AI is using your brain. And so this is my philosophy moving forward. I'm not going to try and say something unrealistic, like I will never touch AI. I will, create a firewall and ban ChatGPT and Gemini and Grok from all of my applications. No, that's not going to happen. I'm going to continue to use AI. But what I will say is this: you shouldn't outsource thinking to AI. We should actually think about things that matter. And anytime you have to think about something, don't have AI think for you. You will just allow your brain to sieve into that ease of not having to think for yourself. And I can relate to this. You can feel the inner workings of your brain lays into not having to think. As I did learn a second language from scratch, I learned Japanese not as a child but as an adult, and but as I do say, pridefully, so frankly, I do speak Japanese to a very high level. I use it in the business world all the time, and I write professional, writing and emails in Japanese. But I do, I still have a little bit of a crutch here and there. Obviously, it's not avoidable. Obviously, there are English as a second language speakers who are better than my Japanese, of course. But I am quite confident in my Japanese level. And the reason for that is because you actually have to use your brain. As pretentious as that sounds, what I mean, though, specifically is you can't just have the language fed to you. I think the reason, too, people struggle learning second languages as adults is because we are and in tune with not wanting to put in work or mental energy to do anything. And so when, we hate homework as kids, I guess, for the same reason. But to actually learn, you have to use like the cognitive work of learning, and it can't be the same thing over and over. It can't just be you look at flashcards and expect to become fluent, or you read through textbooks and expect to become fluent, or you study grammar rules and you expect to become fluent. You have to actually read and listen to the language and go through the process of hearing and reading things that you don't understand, but sticking within the language and trying to understand it, just like we did as babies. I do subscribe to the theory that adults actually learn languages the same way that babies do. The actual language learning process, I don't think, ever changes based on your age. And so this idea that, you're envious of children who grow up speaking multiple languages in the house, right? Even though you only speak one, which is a big thing in the Americas or the UK, any English-centric country, really, I think is a bit of a farce, though it is difficult, because you get actual language learning capability by immersing yourself and having to think within that language. And we don't have to do that anymore as adults, because we've already learned one human language. So we can communicate whatever sort of human ideas in that one language. Now, when you try and learn a second language, then you will use the crutch. You will use your first language as a crutch to try and learn that second language. So you're never learning, for example, Japanese as a person, as a baby coming into the world learning Japanese. You're learning Japanese as an English speaker. What actually allowed me to truly understand Japanese and become as fluent as I am is when I tried to stop learning Japanese as an English speaker, but tried to learn Japanese as a human learning Japanese. So you stop reading textbooks designed for English speakers to learn Japanese, but you start reading Japanese books themselves, just designed for Japanese speakers. That's how you actually get fluency in a language. And so outside of language itself, critical thinking skills, being able to look at things analytically, to do math, to have, logical processes, you have to actually do the processes themselves. I think it's analogous, right? You can't learn a language through a second language. You have to learn the language itself and actually struggle. You can't be able to stay intellectually honest and actually have good critical thinking if you outsource that critical thinking. So I'm making this video to simply say, stop using AI to think.